My brother grinned and said, "The house is ours now, thanks to the co-signer." I said, "Glad it helped." Then my mom whispered, "You shouldn't expect a room. It's their family home." I stood in the driveway, still gripping the congratulatory bottle of champagne when I heard those words. My brother Jamie's voice was full of smug satisfaction, the kind of tone someone uses when they know they've won something, even if they didn't do the work. "The house is ours now, thanks to the co-signer," he repeated, flashing that grin that used to charm teachers and bail him out of every screw-up from kindergarten to college. I smiled tight-lipped. Glad it helped. That was the agreement, after all. I co-signed the mortgage 2 years ago when the bank wouldn't approve him and his wife due to Jamie's patchy job history and dismal credit score. He begged. She cried. My parents called me every day for 2 weeks. "Just help them get their start," my mom had said. "You're so good with money. Jamie just needs a little leg up." So I did it. I was cautious, had the paperwork reviewed, made sure I wasn't financially liable. Clause 14b gave me an out, just in case. But I never expected them to weaponize my kindness. That's when my mom leaned in, voice soft but dagger sharp. "You shouldn't expect a room. It's their family home now." Just like that. No thank you. No appreciation. Just a gentle shove out the door of the very home I helped secure. I didn't say a word. Just smiled, handed Jamie the champagne, and nodded as he and his wife disappeared into their new kitchen to show off the stainless steel appliances to her cousin. That evening, while everyone else posted happy selfies in the backyard, I sat in my car and opened the mortgage document on my phone. Clause 14b. In the event that the cosigner no longer resides or benefits from the property, they may issue a formal withdrawal of signature, provided the mortgage can no longer be sustained by the primary holders. My fingers trembled slightly as I typed the email to the bank. Subject line: Signature Withdrawal Request, Clause 14b Invocation. 3 days later, I got the call. Jamie's number flashed on my screen. I let it ring out. Then came the voicemail. "The loan's in default." What the hell is going on? I just smiled, typed a single sentence in reply, corrected a title error. Jamie's voicemail had the kind of panic I hadn't heard in years. Not since he was 24 and called me crying because he blew his student loan money in 3 weeks and needed rent money or he'd be on the street. Back then, I wired him $1,200 the same night. This time, I didn't answer. I just stared at the phone as it buzzed over and over, each ring another reminder of every time I'd bailed him out. Every time I'd played the role of the good son. The one who didn't complain, who always picked up the slack, who never made a scene. The one who was expected to fix things, no questions asked. Because that's how it's always been in our family. Jamie was the baby, the creative, the free spirit, with a heart of gold and a wallet full of lint. He bounced from job to job like it was a hobby. Graphic design, event planning, bartending, dog walking. My parents framed it as exploration. I saw it for what it was, refusal to grow in its wrong way. Meanwhile, I was the responsible one, the stable one, the co-signer. At 19, I worked full-time and took night classes. By 25, I had already bought my first condo. By 29, I'd flipped it and made enough equity to put a down payment on a better one. By 32, my credit score was 812. When Jamie came to me with his big plan to buy a house for his growing family, I should have known better. But the guilt? It always worked. "Be a good brother," Mom said. "Help them get started," Dad added. "It's not like he's asking you for money, just your name on paper." But my name on paper turned into responsibility in practice. Every time Jamie and his wife missed a payment, the bank called me first. And they missed more than once. "Oh, we had a car issue." "Oh, daycare costs were higher this month." "Oh, the heater broke." Each excuse came with a half-hearted promise. "We'll catch up next month, promise." I covered for them twice, silent wire transfers that I didn't even tell them about. I didn't want them to be ashamed. Or rather, I didn't want them to know how close they were to losing the house until now. And yet, they still found a way to make me feel like the outsider. The day of the housewarming, which, for the record, I wasn't officially invited to but found out about through a cousin's Instagram story, I showed up anyway. I thought, foolishly, that Jamie would pull me aside and say thank you. That maybe he'd hand me a drink and toast to the guy who made this possible. Instead, he grinned at me like a used car salesman and said, "Well, we made it. Thanks to the co-signer." Then Mom whispered, "You shouldn't expect a room. It's their family home. It hit like a slap. And not just because I technically owned part of that house. No, it hit because I remembered every Christmas I spent giving more than I had. Every birthday where Jamie forgot my name, but I still showed up with a gift for his kid. Every time my parents praised his progress and ignored the fact I'd just gotten promoted again. I remembered the time Jamie blew $4,000 of borrowed money on a business idea involving artisanal hot sauce. Or when he and his wife hosted a GoFundMe for baby needs and spent half of it on a staycation. Or when he called me last year, asking me to co-sign, because they'd finally grown up. I believed them. That night after the housewarming, I sat at my kitchen table alone, reading and rereading the mortgage agreement. It felt like swallowing broken glass. That clause, 14B, was my only parachute, and they lit the plane on fire. So I jumped. I sent the email. Then I waited. Day 1, silence. Day 2, missed calls. Texts. Day 3, 9:17 a.m. A call from Jamie, his voice cracking like a teenager caught lying. You need to call the bank, man. They said the mortgage is unstable or something. I requested my signature be removed, I said calmly. Clause 14B. They'll need you to refinance under your own credit. You can't do that. I can. I did. Click. At 4:41 p.m., my dad texted me. We may lose the house. I stared at it for a long time, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. I typed 3 words. Not my problem. The fallout was faster and uglier than I anticipated. By day 4, the group chats were lighting up. Jamie's wife posted some cryptic Instagram story about betrayal from the one person you thought had your back. My mom called me 4 times in 1 hour. I didn't answer a single one. On the 5th day, I finally picked up when Dad called. Son, he started, his voice strained. We need to talk. We met at a diner, neutral ground. He looked older than I remembered. Grayer, more tired. Like the stress of a mortgage default was finally outweighing the comfort of pretending everything was fine. He slid into the booth across from me and didn't say anything for a moment. Just stirred his coffee. No sugar. No cream. Just bitterness. I don't understand, he finally said. Why would you do this to your brother? I leaned back and folded my arms. To him? Or for myself? You knew their credit wasn't strong enough. You co-signed knowing that. I also knew Clause 14B gave me an exit if I wasn't benefiting from the property. Mom made it pretty clear I wasn't welcome. That was taken out of context. I laughed, short and sharp. No, Dad. That was exactly the context. I was good enough to help them buy it. Not good enough to have a room in it. He looked uncomfortable, shifting in his seat. You should have talked to us before pulling something like this. You blindsided the entire family. I stared at him, suddenly calm. You mean the family that didn't invite me to the housewarming? The family that treats Jamie like a king and me like an ATM? The family that spent the last decade rewarding irresponsibility while punishing boundaries? You're being dramatic, he snapped. There it was. That old tone. Like I was still 17 and questioning why Jamie got away with skipping chores while I had to mow the lawn in the rain. No, I said. I'm being direct. And I'm done. He sat back, stunned, as if the words hit harder than expected. I let the silence stretch until it felt like another person in the booth with us. Then I dropped the real bomb. You know what's funny? I asked the bank for a copy of the current mortgage agreement. Jamie and his wife refinanced last year. Dad blinked. What? I slid a paper across the table. Page 2. Line 3. Borrowers, Jamie R. Last name, Tara R. Last name. Co-signer, Liam M. My name. He scanned it quickly, eyes narrowing. So they refinanced without telling me, which, according to Clause 12A, violates the co-signer agreement. They locked me in as responsible without my knowledge. That's mortgage fraud. Dad went pale. His fingers curled slightly around the paper. You're not pressing charges, are you? I tilted my head. Should I? Come on, Liam. He's your brother. He's an adult. He knew what he was doing. And so did she. Dad didn't respond. He just stared at the paper like it might rewrite itself if he glared long enough. I didn't want to hurt anyone. I added, my voice quieter now. But I'm not going to be used anymore. He rubbed his temples. Jamie's panicking. They can't get approved without you. They're going to lose the house. I met his eyes. That's not my fault. Later that night, I got a call from Jamie. He didn't start with hello. He went straight for blood. You ruined us. You ruined yourself, I replied. He was yelling now. We have a toddler, man. A baby. Are you seriously going to let your niece live in a motel? Don't talk to me about family, I said, cold as stone. Not after what you and Tara did. Not after you forged my name on a refinance just to get a lower interest rate. I was your safety net, and you cut a hole in it. Silence. Then a soft, pathetic, we were just trying to build something. And I was trying to protect myself. Looks like we both succeeded. He hung up. That weekend, my mom came by unannounced. She stood on my doorstep with tears in her eyes and a casserole dish in her hands. Her olive branch. Her guilt offering. You really won't help them? She asked, voice trembling. I opened the door just enough to meet her gaze. Not with a house they said I wasn't welcome in. Her lip quivered. It's not fair. You're better off. You don't have kids. You don't have. Exactly, I cut in. I don't have kids. I don't have a wife. I don't have a family leaning on me. Because every time I tried to build my own life, you handed my energy, my resources, my support to Jamie. She looked down at the casserole dish. I didn't know it was that bad. I nodded once. That's the problem. I closed the door. And for the first time in years, I felt warm. The first thing I noticed after the mortgage signature withdrawal wasn't the backlash. It was the silence. Not a peaceful silence. Not at first. It was the kind that made your shoulders stay tense, like you're still bracing for the next blow. Like you're waiting for the guilt texts, the manipulation calls, the accusations masked as concern. But they didn't come. Not immediately. The first 2 days, I heard nothing. No calls from Jamie. No frantic texts from my parents. Just silence. Which, coming from a family that had no problem calling me at 2 a.m. to ask if I could float the mortgage or just cover the gap for the month, was eerie. On day 3, that silence shattered. A voicemail from Jamie. Angry, breathless. The kind of voice someone uses when they've just realized the walls are closing in. The bank's saying the loan's in jeopardy, man. What the hell did you do? Tara's freaking out. You need to fix this, now. I didn't call back. I didn't even flinch. A part of me, a small part, felt guilty. I'd spent years being the fixer, the reliable one, the brother with the 800-plus credit score, the head-on straight, the boring job that paid well enough to rescue everyone else from their messes. But the rest of me? The part that remembered how my name had been used, how I'd been dismissed at their celebration, how my mother had whispered that I didn't belong in a home I helped them buy. That part of me felt something else entirely. Relief. And then, vindication. By the end of the week, I received an official notice from the bank. Due to the violation of cosigner clauses and the inability of the primary borrowers to carry the mortgage alone, the loan was flagged for default. I was removed from all responsibility. But the mortgage? Now entirely Jamie and Tara's burden. Their reactions came fast. Jamie called again, this time pleading. We have a baby, man. You can't just pull out like that. The bank said there's no way we qualify on our own. We could lose the house. I texted back one sentence. Then you shouldn't have excluded the person who made it possible. He didn't reply. My mother, however, wasn't done. She showed up at my apartment 2 days later. No warning. Just appeared, red-eyed, holding a pie like we were in a sitcom. Like baked goods could reverse years of imbalance. She didn't even wait to be invited in. You've made your point, she said, standing stiff in my doorway. But is it worth destroying your brother's life over? I tilted my head. Did he think about that when he refinanced the mortgage without my knowledge? She flinched. That was the part none of them had expected, that I'd find out they'd forged my signature during refinancing last year. That they'd knowingly committed fraud just to secure a better interest rate, using my credit, my trust, and then erasing me when it was convenient. She had no answer, just a long, trembling sigh. He was desperate, she said. So was I. I was desperate to stop being used. She placed the pie down on the entry table. You were never used. I walked over to the shelf and pulled out a file folder, dropped it on the table beside the pie. Inside, copies of every transfer, every check, every payment I made on their behalf over 8 years, totaling $67,400. Then what would you call this? She stared at the numbers, at the long list of dates and amounts, then at me, and she said nothing, just left. After that, the silence returned. But this time, it felt different. I stopped checking my phone every few minutes. The buzzing anxiety that used to live in my chest like a tenant, it started to move out. I could breathe. I could sit in my living room without wondering who was going to ask me to save them next. And for the first time in over a decade, I began to live only for myself. I moved. Upgraded to a one-bedroom apartment downtown. Nothing fancy, but it had tall windows and morning light. The kind of place where you don't owe anyone a single inch of your floor plan. I started doing small things I hadn't done in years. Reading for pleasure, cooking actual meals, saying no without giving an explanation. Meanwhile, Jamie and Tara moved into a rented duplex in a less shiny neighborhood. I heard through a mutual friend that their credit was wrecked, that they were fighting a lot, that Jamie had picked up 2 part-time jobs to cover rent and bills. I didn't gloat, but I didn't feel sorry either. I felt free. One day in early spring, I received a letter. Handwritten. No return address. It was from Tara's sister. You probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted to say thank you. Not just for helping them buy that house, but for finally standing up for yourself. You were the only reason they had that roof to begin with. And the only reason they lost it was because they took you for granted. I hope you're doing okay. Just wanted you to know, some of us noticed. And some of us understand. I kept that letter. It sits on my bookshelf, tucked behind a photo from my college graduation. A day my family didn't bother showing up for because Jamie was feeling sick. Somehow, that letter means more than any thank you I ever got from my own blood. Because it wasn't just about the house. It was about reclaiming power. It was about burning the bridge before they dragged me into the water with them. It was about finally saying, enough, and meaning it. It's been over a year since I removed my name from that mortgage and let the pieces fall where they may. 1 year since I finally stopped playing the silent savior in a family that mistook sacrifice for obligation. And I've never been more certain that I did the right thing. In the beginning, the quiet unnerved me. I was used to chaos, to last-minute calls, to emergencies that weren't mine but became mine anyway. I was so accustomed to carrying everyone else's burdens that I'd forgotten what my own life sounded like when I wasn't constantly putting out someone else's fires. But now I know peace. Real peace. I live in a modest but beautiful apartment downtown. It's not big, but it's mine. Paid for with my money, my decisions, my freedom. The furniture was chosen with intention. The space is clean. The silence is sacred. No children running through the hallway uninvited. No phone calls at 11 p.m. asking if I could cover a car payment or a last-minute babysitting shift. Just stillness. And for once, I don't mistake it for loneliness. I've been learning what it means to enjoy my own company. I read more. I journal almost every day. I take long walks in the evening, listening to old music I used to love before my days were filled with other people's noise. Sometimes, I'll sit at the cafe on the corner, sipping coffee, watching life unfold around me, and I realize I'm part of the world again. Not just a silent pillar holding up a collapsing house. That house, the one Jamie and Tara lost. It was sold at auction last winter. They had to move out before Christmas. They ended up in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment near the highway, far from the polished suburb where they once posed for housewarming photos they never invited me to be in. I didn't celebrate their fall, but I didn't mourn it either. Actions have consequences. And for once, I wasn't the one cushioning the landing. My parents tried to rope me back in a few times. Generic holiday messages. We miss you. It's been too long. My father even left a voicemail saying, Jamie's doing better now. Maybe it's time we all moved past this. But they never once apologized. Not for the manipulation. Not for the pressure. Not for choosing Jamie's convenience over my well-being time and time again. They just wanted me to forget. To move on. To be the bigger person. But here's the thing. I was the bigger person. For years. And it nearly broke me. Being the bigger person doesn't mean staying in a system that eats you alive. It doesn't mean handing over your time, your peace, your money, your sense of self, just because someone shares your DNA. Forgiveness, I've learned, doesn't require contact or explanation. Sometimes it looks like silence, distance, closure that happens in your own heart with no audience. I've forgiven Jamie, but I'll never trust him again. I've forgiven my parents, but I'll never give them another opportunity to silence me. The people I surround myself with now, friends, colleagues, chosen family, they know me for me. Not as a wallet, not as a fallback, not as a tool, but as a man who has weathered something heavy and came out the other side. I've started painting again. Nothing serious, just for myself. Colors and shapes that don't need permission to exist. There's one canvas I keep on the wall across from my desk. Blues, grays, a hint of gold. I call it Clause 14B. Every time I look at it, I remember the moment I sent that email to the bank. Not out of anger, but clarity. It was the moment I chose myself. And in a world that so often teaches us to put others first, especially those closest to us, choosing yourself is an act of revolution. If you asked me what the hardest part was, I'd say it wasn't the backlash, not the yelling, not the disappointment. It was unlearning the idea that love means saying yes until you have nothing left. It was rebuilding an identity that wasn't rooted in usefulness. And now? Now I live by a different code. I help when I can, but not at the expense of my sanity. I show up, but only where I'm respected. I love, but not blindly. One night, a few weeks ago, I received a message on Facebook from an old high school friend. We hadn't talked in years. She wrote, "I saw what happened with your brother. I remember how people used to dump stuff on you, and you always just took it. It's good to see someone finally stand up. You look lighter." She's right. I feel lighter because I'm no longer carrying weight that was never mine. And if someone reading this is wondering whether they should finally draw a line, walk away, or stand up for themselves, I'll say this. You are not selfish for saying no. You are not cruel for protecting your peace. You are not wrong for refusing to drown in someone else's storm. Sometimes, choosing yourself isn't the betrayal. It's the rescue, rebuilding after a hard lesson. And the most powerful thing I ever typed? For words, I withdraw my signature.